Okay, so Scott, how do sound engineers get hired? I'm a sound engineer, or at least I claim to be, and I want more jobs. Things have really been tough for the last year, and I'm just thinking, like, as we're getting out of this and more shows are starting to come back and tours are starting to come back, I would also like to just like upscale my business a little bit and learn more about how sound engineers get hired and how like the business side works. What are the economics of this thing that I'm doing that I don't quite understand too well? So that was a long preamble to say, how do sound engineers get hired?
Well, even in like pre-pandemic times, it was kind of, I always kind of felt opaque, especially on the touring music industry side of things. I was like, how do you get in? How do you get the job with the bands? Like, how do you even meet these people and all that? And it was always felt like something that I couldn't figure out, or like a lot of people share that same thing. Like, how do you even really get connected with this world? And it's all networking and who you know and meeting people. Of course, I think almost any industry is. And once I kind of got a clear idea of that and whom I would need to speak uh, to talk about work, or who was actually hiring the engineers for tours or for different events. I mean, I kind of put things in perspective a little bit. I got a kind of clearer picture. So that's one of the things I want to do with this panel, is bring a few people on who actually hire audio engineers, and they can talk about maybe what they're looking for, what some of the job qualifications might be for the different applications. These are people that work in different parts of the industry. We're having a actual artist manager on, my friend David, who manages MGMT and the Hold Steady, Luther Vandross, a bunch of other great artists, and also Meegan Holmes from Eighth Day Sound, Claire, which is now the same company, Claire Brothers and Eighth Day. For those of you who don't know, those are the two biggest touring companies in the world that have now merged. But in any case,
Are they the two biggest in the world? Okay.
well, yeah, before there was Britannia Row, which is a huge one in the UK, but Claire bought them.
Okay.
There were a couple big ones in Australia, but Claire bought them.
Wow.
So now Claire has bought Eighth Day as well, which is their biggest competitor. So it's all pretty much one huge global touring company at this point. But in any case, cool. Meegan Holmes, who's one of the linchpins of their operation in Los Angeles, she's going to join. She's hires people all the time. She has a long history of working for great production companies in the Los Angeles area, hiring audio engineers, putting together crews for big shows and for tours and all that. So she'll have a lot of great stuff to share. And then Chris Leonard, who does a lot of hiring for kind of more on the corporate AV side of things. So he will definitely have some good insight to share for what might be involved in that type of work. There is a ton of work for audio engineers and video engineers and lighting people in kind of corporate events and AV work. And a lot of that can be, more better paying or more consistent than music work. So those are definitely things that are worth considering as a freelancer. And we'll cover all this stuff as we talk through the panel.
Okay, cool. So what is this? You said the word panel. You said all these people you're talking to. Where is this happening?
Well, that's a good thing you asked, because my friend Nathan Lively is hosting this amazing event.
Event.
As he does every year at the Live Sound Summit. This year it is June 13th, 14th, and 15th of 2021. Really looking forward to it. Last year was phenomenal. We had a lot of great speakers. The year before was great too. So I'm really looking forward to this year. It is kind of a fun time to be talking about live music or live events in general, because all this stuff is just kind of ramping up again after all this pandemic shutdown. So I think there's a palpable sense of excitement about a lot of reopening and getting back into a venue with a bunch of people and seeing music or theater or having church events or whatever it is. But as humans, we like doing that stuff. So I think everyone's excited to get back to it, and it'll be fun to talk about all that stuff this year.
So June 13, 14, 15, and I believe your panel is actually on the 15th at, I think, 2:15 my time, Central Time.
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking
and
forward to that.
That is all at Live Sound Summit 2021.sounddesignlive.com/schedule if you want to see the entire schedule and everybody who's on it. I think we have about 20 sessions now, 20 different people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And, I don't know. I remember last year. I mean, last year, a lot more people were home, but I remember like kind of signing on in the beginning, one of the first days, and um, seeing everybody come on and start to talk. And I wasn't on the whole time, but I was bouncing back and forth. But every time I came on, it was like this same like core group of people was watching the whole thing. It was amazing. It was just so cool to see, and to see the kind of like people chatting and just having discussions about all the speakers and all the new information that we were learning. I mean, there's like some mind blowing cool stuff that came up last year. So hopefully that comes around again this year. But the sense of community around the whole thing is really fun, and it's really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I totally agree. Scott, I hope you don't mind me asking, but why should I listen to you talk about how sound engineers get hired? What do you know about the business of hiring and sound engineers?
Well, I know that I didn't know much about it for most of my career. I think maybe my perspective was wrong on some things, and I think um, I don't know. You learn all that stuff with experience and just working for years as a freelancer. Anyone that's done it kind of picks up these things, and unfortunately, there wasn't really resources to talk about this stuff. When I was kind of getting into it, I didn't know anybody who was really could talk me through some of the pitfalls of working as a freelancer, or what I should really be thinking about if I want to get into a certain part of the industry, or even how I should consider my whole freelance sound engineering career in general.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff is perspective, and a lot of that stuff you can only get by experience and getting older. But just talking about it and listening to more experienced people is just super helpful for anyone who's trying to navigate that world. So luckily, I'm mostly a facilitator. I think I'll come from the perspective of someone who is a sound engineer. So I hopefully can ask good questions to my panel, who really are the people with tons of experience of actually hiring engineers. These are the people looking at resumes or doing interviews and really making a decision about what they need from their freelance audio engineers, whether it's corporate audio, touring, or what have you.
Yeah. Plus, you are a sound engineer. You've had tons of gigs and have had the experience of not knowing how someone gets hired and then getting hired and, seeing how the whole process works.
Yeah.
And you continue to be a sound engineer, and you continue to, part of your business is understanding how this stuff works. So I'm sure you'll know more tomorrow, and by the time we get to this panel than you even do today.
Sure.
So I really appreciate, hearing your experience about this. And what I've always thought would be super helpful is if, I don't know, there aren't necessarily a lot of formal interviews, I guess, in our field, but if you have been in an interview, you've probably wished you could just be really honest and say, what would impress you here? Like, what do you want to hear? How can I really give you the right information to make sure this is the right fit for me? How can I know that this is a good fit for me? And so I'm just really looking forward to being able to ask some questions of these people that you're bringing on the panel as well, and say to them, like, what are you looking for? And is there any way that I could screw up this interview? Or is there anything that you would like to make sure that I don't do so I can keep my job? Like, lots of things like that I think now being 40 years old, I try to pretend like I know all that stuff so that I look like an expert when I'm in the field, but really I don't know so much of this stuff still. And I would just like to have it validated, even some of the, I don't know, just assumptions I've made about what people want.
Totally. Yeah. So I think those would be great questions to ask of this panel. I think like avoiding red flags is a huge part of it. I think a lot of times it's not what you do. It's not what it's not what you do that impresses them. It's avoiding things that you do that put up red flags.
Totally.
So maybe I'm wrong on that, but again, I think the discussion might bear this out a little bit with the panel. So, but all these things are really important to think about. And I think that I don't always get called back for jobs. I make mistakes, and I've I've lost gigs, and it happens to everybody. And hopefully identifying that, or kind of talking about why that might be, or and a lot of times it's just the fit isn't right, especially in the music industry. If you're touring together with someone, maybe one engineer will get along better personally with a couple of the bandmates or whatever, and someone else wouldn't get along so well. It's really not a cut and dry thing. But again, avoiding some like real pitfalls, avoiding some real red flags from the people who are hiring you is definitely worth talking about and trying to identify.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I really hope that either you ask or someone remembers to ask your panelists about these red flags. Like, what is a reason that someone has not gotten hired? What is a reason that someone has not gotten rehired or maybe taken off of a job? And now you and I have had enough gigs that we've seen the way some of those things go down, and they're not how you expect normally. They often tend to be personality issues, just sort of like things that you would relate to soft skills, professionalism. And so I don't think we're going to get into that right now, but as you're talking, I'm just realizing that when I come to this panel, I'm going to be thinking about all of my past experiences, and hopefully this will shed some new light and help me just like get some more learning about the things I've already been through.
Totally. And I think a lot of times it's part of it is just open communication and good communication, and asking the right questions so that people are on the same page and aren't imagining that the other person is in a different position than they are, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
A lot of times everyone is just, if everyone was talking correctly and communicating well, everything would be chill and easy and the gig would be fine, but it doesn't, of course, always work out that way. And so I think definitely the communication skills it's tough for, a lot of us. I have trouble with communication skills. I always have. I've worked to make them better. But I think I've, not gotten along on jobs before because I'm not speaking to someone correctly. And we're fine. We're just not, not getting there, not communicating well or speaking our mind. So I think a lot of that stuff is, it's got soft skills, like you say, but it's important stuff. It's important stuff.
You, if you were to ask me, do you have good communication skills? I just say, of course, I'm amazing, right? Like I think very highly of myself, lots of confidence, no problem. But then if you were to then ask me specifically, okay, in this situation, what questions do you ask to make sure you like go in ready for the scenario? I might not know. So I'm going to be coming, ready to take a lot of notes because those are gems I can really pull out. I'm sure I'm going to be able to pull out of your panel when someone says something like, yeah, make sure you ask X, Y, and Z, which to them now is so clear. And I'll be like, oh my God, like I'd remember to ask that when I'm in that situation. And, so then I'll have like a list of questions. So this sounds great. So I'll just say the URL again is Live Sound Summit 2021. Scott Adamson from the Production Academy and all of your favorite bands. Thanks for talking to me today.
Thanks for having me, Nathan.